Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Yes, I'm really excited actually to be here because normally I'm surrounded by clinical psychologists who are a bit skeptical of spirituality as a field or as a subject to research. So I'm fighting a lot to get the variables in my main study. And this is also what I'm going to talk about today. It's the main big research study of. Where is that? You do have it. Yeah, okay. It's here. Yeah, so dealing with flexible meaning making as a protective factor for moral injury in high risk occupations. It's very long. It's part of as I said, bigger project, which mostly focuses on clinical trauma and flexibility, but I will come to that in a second. During the next 10 minutes, it's supposed to be white. During the next 10 minutes, we'll be looking at this study that is currently running. That's also why I had a question mark behind my title. And I brought some ideas and qualitative findings of a pre-study that led me to this study that's currently running, and then, of course, discuss next steps. And I'm really looking forward to also hearing your thoughts about it. And I first want to get started by talking about the link of moral injury and flexibility, because I didn't hear the word flexibility at this conference very much. And I really think it's a promising concept to look into. So I'm excited to talk about it today. And especially actually because this whole, thought process, maybe thinking about flexibility, is super relevant for educational contexts, interventions, prevention, self-reflection. We heard about it by Arndt Büssing before. So it's like, highly relevant for the practice. Here I want to start with a few quotes from our study already. And it's just some examples. What people experience is, it's not super surprising, but just to get started: pediatric resuscitation or pediatric emergencies, death of a colleague, first responder at suicide attempts on highways, but then also a very different kind of experience: improper treatment by some emergency room doctors on duty, and a very specific scenario: security guards pushed a homeless, intoxicated patient away from the hospital and caused him to fall, and basically didn't help him, but removed him from the property. And these experiences represent very different types of events. They can overlap, but the effect on the person differs a lot, because in trauma research, the focus is often on fear-based models and emotion regulation in the aftermath, while with moral injury, the focus is on meaning making and broader concepts of giving a sense to the situation, but also to your life in general. And instead of the physical danger, it's really the sense of right or wrong that is challenged when talking about moral injury. And in our first scenario, for example, with the treatment by some emergency room doctors, it could be that the ethic of do no harm and really always help a patient is hurted in this case, and the person has to, of course, deal with it. And just to get some concepts a bit straight, because a lot of research lines talk about or use the same words, but don't really differentiate that well sometimes. I wanted to differentiate global meaning and then the situational meaning, because especially in trauma research, and that's where I'm coming from, they talk a lot about the situational meaning, also when only talking about meaning making in papers. And it means, like the meaning that you give to the traumatic experience. But here I'm talking about more, of course, like the overarching global meaning that in case of a potentially morally injurious event, you will find a discrepancy that, and basically have to deal with it. And when you, in case you visited some of the keynotes yesterday, there are a lot of overlaps actually with the predictive processing, for example, like prediction error, like or also in this, yeah, that for now. And now I wanna go on with some numbers, because I think that's also really fascinating and relevant when talking about this. We have very high numbers of traumatic experiences within these fields, and also of moral injury. It's a bit lower, and of course it depends on the study and what group they specifically focused on, but still. And also the clinically relevant numbers, like of 14% of probable PTSD on this side, and then here 7%, quite high, like relevant to look at it. But, and now I'm focusing on the positive, this also means that the majority of people is actually resilient and doesn't react with prolonged distress. And this is, especially in clinical psychology, often overlooked, actually, because we always focus on the PTSD side of things. And now there's one paradox that I want to introduce, because research, of course, and we heard also a lot of studies here, has long tried to find which coping strategies are the effective ones to, yeah, like in case you experience an event like this. And no single strategy has so far really shown predictive value to predict resilience. So if you have a longitudinal design, that's what you would need to investigate that, to have one factor and then say after the event, you will not develop this because of this. And this is like the problem in the field at the moment. So there have, of course, been researchers addressing that problem. And one of them is George Bonanno. Maybe some of you might be familiar with him. If not, look him up, because he's talking about flexibility, and particularly about emotion regulation flexibility. And it means that basically all strategies are okay. Like, he doesn't say they are good or bad, but they have to fit the situation. And these are not super new things, like it's very intuitive in a way. But now the research is really starting. Like, this concept was introduced about 2015. So it's really only starting now. And now the idea in our project is, first of all, to also investigate this emotion regulation in the German context. And we translated some scales. We're running a validation study. But also now comes my meaning-making interest in, again, to see for moral injury if meaning-making flexibility actually makes a difference. And in our pre-study, that's actually also what we can find. Like, a lot of what I talked about is what we found in the qualitative responses. First of all, that there's a lot of struggles, of course, with situations, also with moral injury. Then what we see in other research as well, that the religious landscape is changing, of course. And we see that there's a lot more spirituality in several of the interview partners. And then also the last quote that I brought, it's very small here. And then there are these interpersonal conflicts and conflicts of values that actually require you to put your own values on the side. So that's also one of the reasons why we wanted to investigate meaning-making flexibility. And just also as a as an idea also for other research projects, I brought this scale, which is the only one that covers emotion, like meaning-making flexibility in some way. And I'm really curious to hear if there are other ideas in the room. And it's basically asking or rating statements like, my way of seeing the world is certainly going to change again. In my opinion, doubt is important in existential questions. And also, again, thinking about all the other talks that we already heard, this idea of flexibility is around. We heard it maybe in different words. For example, this here, Tove Giske talked about the dynamic, like spirituality as a dynamic dimension. And then also with this prediction era, it was the same idea. You have to be flexible and adapt in a way to your surrounding. So that is one approach or one idea that we want to use now to investigate the effect on mental health outcomes, and of course also on moral injury specific outcomes that we also have. And now just a very quick overview what the study is looking like, because it's a very long and complex study. That's also why I didn't bring like full results with me yet, because it's a longitudinal design with 2 follow-ups, and also includes an ecological momentary assessment phase. And then that's the core or the heart of the study. We are actually asking and waiting for participants to experience something potentially traumatic, and then they are answering questions. So this is we're trying with this to not only do the cross-sectional work, which is of course also really important, but to really get the prediction and can make very different conclusions from it. Now that I'm running out of time, I just brought a few of the religion-related questionnaires that we also have in our study. There's much more in it. It's a very complex design, but yeah, we have something like spiritual struggles. And then of course, this one is the most important with the moral injury and distress. We also translated a religious and spiritual coping scale to not only have the religious coping included in the study. And what we're planning is using the baseline individual differences and then, like the prospective ecologically valid event to run like a stepwise regression to control, basically also control for the moral injury exposure before something happens, and then use the meaning-making flexibility to predict outcomes after a morally injurious event happened. And depending on the sample size, because that's of course a big limitation, because we're not sure yet how many people will really do the study until the end. We consider centrality of religion and spirituality as a moderator. Yes, so that was the talk, and I first want to thank you for your attention, and then go on to questions and recommendations, maybe ideas for flexibility measures of spirituality.